Hey, welcome back to the Mono Report, guys. If you're joining me from the May video, this is now the June video of the summer movie preview breakdown. It's really interesting that the summer movie season, although it officially starts in May, it's been trickling earlier and earlier in the year. I mean, now, the last couple of years, they've kind of really started in March, where last year we had Batman vs. Superman and Jungle Book being released in March, and this year we had films like Kong Skull Island and Beauty and the Beast being released. And the summer movie season seems to be getting earlier and earlier each year, so it's kind of interesting that now we've got like this massive extended summer season, but officially summer has always sort of started in May. Well, even though it's technically spring, the summer movie season always tends to start in May. So anyway, if you watched the May video, I hope you enjoyed it. But if you haven't, check that one out first and then come back to this June video, and you can keep following all the breakdowns of all the films coming out during the summer season. So first off the bat, we get a big one that I'm really hoping is awesome. Wonder Woman coming out on June 2nd. Now, this is a film that I know a lot of people are very curious about because, I mean, even though I admittedly like Batman vs. Superman and I really like the Ultimate Edition, I really think the Ultimate Edition is what should have been released into theaters off the bat. But anyway, everything that's been said about Batman vs. Superman has been said, and I mean, Suicide Squad is just unfortunate. That film just ended up being a mess. But Wonder Woman is a film that I think both Warner Brothers and DC really need to hit out the park with, or at least just get people back on board with DC and Warner Brothers, because I mean, I'm a big DC fan. I love DC Comics. I really want Wonder Woman to do well. I mean, everything that Patty Jenkins has shown of Gal Gadot and the film, I mean, Chris Pine looks great in the film, and all the visuals and how the story's been told and the homages to Richard Donner's Superman the movie really fills me with a lot of hope that maybe Wonder Woman is going to be the one that kind of brings people back around to the DC camp and get people excited for the future of the DCEU, because at the moment I think DC just needs a film that's solid and can convince people that they can kind of trust DC to make good films that everyone is going to be behind, that is sort of universally liked or loved. So hopefully they can deliver that with Wonder Woman. I from what I've heard, people have enjoyed it. They're kind of comparing it at the moment to Captain America, the First Avenger, or Thor, around that level, and I think that's fine. Even if it's just around that level, we just need kind of a solid film to get people back on board with DC, because if Wonder Woman isn't up to scratch, I mean, that kind of leaves Justice League kind of in doubt, which I don't want, because I'm really looking forward to the Justice League movie. But I think Wonder Woman's going to deliver. I think it'll do well, and it'll be interesting to see how that movie is received. But look, let's hope it does well. So that's June 2nd. Another film that comes out on June 2nd is a film I'm actually kind of excited for, because I used to read these books when I was a kid. Captain Underpants comes out on June 2nd. This is the DreamWorks animated feature, and this actually looks quite fun. This has Kevin Hart, Ed Helms, and Nick Kroll and Thomas Middleditch all in the film, and I mean, the humor seems to be a bit more kiddie, which, I mean, they were kiddie books, I mean, but they always had a little bit more of a tongue-in-cheek humor that I think older kids and parents would kind of enjoy. So I mean, DreamWorks tend to be a bit better than, say, Sony Animation, at least, where their films are still kind of enjoyable for both adults and kids, but I'm kind of worried this Captain Underpants film might skew to kids just a bit too much, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, I used to read these books all the time when I was, 6-7 years old, so I love these books. Funniest thing around at the time. So I mean, hey, if they're making the film for 6-7 year olds, that probably makes sense, because that was the age when I read the books. So we'll see how that film does. I mean, that is supposedly opening around the same time as Wonder Woman, so I don't know how that's gonna kind of work out. I mean, it's an animated film. They might have two completely different audiences, but they're still kind of both. I mean, Wonder Woman is definitely a superhero film, and Captain Underpants is kind of a superhero film, even though it's a comedy and it's an animated film. So I mean, if they have more diverse audiences, then I guess it might work out, but it'll be interesting to see how they both perform that weekend at the box office. I'm not too sure how that's going to go. But following that is kind of a home invasion horror film titled It Comes at Night, which releases on June 9th. I've seen the poster and the teaser trailer, and the film looks terrifying, and it's being released by A24, which A24 is a production company that I really like. They release films such as Free Fire, which came out last week, but also, Moonlight and Ex Machina, which is a film I really, really love, and even Kevin Smith's Tusk. So they're a company that kind of help up-and-coming filmmakers release their films, but the thing is, all the stuff they put out is usually pretty solid, so actually quite looking forward to It Comes at Night. It stars Joel Edgerton, who's always pretty good in what he's in, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. That's out on June 9th. But another horror film, or kind of an action horror film that comes out on that same day, June 9th, is The Mummy, and this is Universal's big reboot starring Tom Cruise and Sofia Boutella, who is awesome in Kingsman: The Secret Service, as well as Russell Crowe, and this film is supposed to kickstart their Monsters shared universe, which would include their classic horror icon monsters from the 1930s, such as Frankenstein's monster and the Wolfman, the creature from the Black Lagoon, the Invisible Man, those kinds of monsters that are supposed to all kind of inhabit a shared universe in the vein of Marvel and DC. So we'll see how this film kind of turns out. It's directed by Alex Kurtzman, who hasn't really directed anything before, but the thing is, this guy still wrote the screenplay for The Amazing Spider-Man 2, so he co-wrote it, as well as I think maybe some of the Transformers movies, so I'm not sure how I feel about this Mummy film. Everything I've seen of it looks good, it looks exciting. I know a lot of people are upset about it not being a continuation of the Brendan Fraser films, but again, those films always sort of felt like, felt like Indiana Jones light, whereas obviously the original Mummy from the 1930s that the Brendan Fraser films were a remake of was an actual horror film. So this kind of seems like they're going back to those horror roots, which I think is the right move. I think we're kind of done with it being the Indiana Jones light thing. So I'm curious about this film because obviously Universal were meant to kickstart this universe with Dracula Untold back in 2014, I think that film came out. But obviously that film wasn't the best, even though Luke Evans is a great actor. It wasn't as well received as they probably would have hoped for a film intended to kickstart a universe, and it just didn't do too great at the box office. So hopefully they kind of strike gold with this Mummy reboot. It looks promising so far, but again, the director from day one has kind of had me worried, so I don't know how I feel about it. We'll just have to wait and see how the film turns out. Who knows, he might turn around and give us something incredible, so we'll just have to see how it goes. Following that, we have Cars 3, which will be released on June 16th. I don't really have a strong affinity to the Cars films. They've always kind of been the weaker of Pixar's films that they've released. The first Cars was okay, and Cars 2 was just a train wreck. It just wasn't engaging, and it was that franchise has always just stuck out as just being intended to sell toys, so I haven't really had any sort of attachment to that franchise at all. But this one, Cars 3, seems to be going for a feel that sort of feels a bit more like some of Pixar's other films, so maybe it might bring a few people back on board. But I don't know who's really screaming out for more Cars movies. Unless you've got kids and kids are asking for the toys. I don't really know anyone who's actively asking for the Cars film, so hopefully this one turns out for them. We'll see how it ends up going. And then following that, we get the film that I really don't get what's going on with this film anymore. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but June 23, we get Transformers: The Last Night. This is the 5th film with Michael Bay in the director's chair, and really, I don't understand what this film is anymore. There's King Arthur involved and Nazis, and the trailers kind of show glimpses of these King Arthur scenes, but no one really knows what the hell they're doing in the film. Are they flashbacks? Are they the Transformers time traveling? I don't know. I just don't care about the Transformers films anymore. I'm gonna see it, but I'm not expecting it to be good. Age of Extinction was just an absolute train wreck of a movie. The first Transformers film was a film I really enjoyed when it came out. It was just, I will never forget that opening of the first Transformers film. That scene alone was just everything you kind of wanted in a Transformers film, or at least, everything you kind of wanted to see see from like the Decepticons, but everything since, you know, the second film and onwards just been progressively worse. Even though, I mean, the third film is kind of a bit more of a guilty pleasure, it's certainly a little bit better than maybe the second film, but I mean, the Transformers film is just, oh god, I just don't know how to comprehend this fifth Transformers film. I hope this is the last one Michael Bay does. I don't really think we need to see him direct any more of these, but I mean, apparently there was a writer's room that was put together to write these films, and I don't know. I mean, if all these writers got together and The Last Night is one of the films that they conjured up, I mean, just what did they do during that time? I just don't know. I mean, none of the trailers so far have just made none of them have made any sense. I don't understand what this film is going to be. So I'm gonna move on from Transformers. It's another film. It's a limited release, but it's a film that I'm kind of curious about. It releases June 23, the same day, unfortunately, as Transformers Last Night. So you can kind of tell how that box office battle is going to go. If you're an indie filmmaker going up against Michael Bay, God help you. But The Bad Batch, it's kind of this odd, kind of dystopian, Mad Maxy type film. It's got Jason Momoa and Jim Carrey and Keanu Reeves. It's directed by Anna Lily Amirpour, who directed films such as A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which wasn't too bad. But the film kind of looks interesting. I mean, the trailers haven't been the best, but I mean, it's Mad Max with cannibals and set in the Texas wasteland, so I don't know, it might be something crazy and there might be some enjoyment found in it, but we'll see how it goes. That's on June 23rd is The Bad Batch. Next film is one though that I'm really excited for, and that is Baby Driver, which comes out June 28th. It is directed by Edgar Wright. His next film following The World's End, which I didn't mind. I don't think it was as good as the other Three Flavors Cornetto films, but still enjoyable. But I mean, Edgar Wright is still Edgar Wright as a filmmaker. He's just, everything he does is just awesome. He just reeks so much style. I mean, Scott Pilgrim is a film I've seen hundreds of times. I mean, in high school, I used to religiously watch that film. I loved Scott Pilgrim. Just everything he did with that film, even though it wasn't necessarily the most faithful adaptation, and still, it's just, the film that he did make just had so much style to it and so much energy, and I don't think anyone really could have approached the Scott Pilgrim source material quite like Edgar Wright did and come out with the type of film that he did. So, I mean, that I still love that film to this day, but Baby Driver just looks awesome. I mean, you've got Jamie Foxx, Kevin Spacey, John Hamm, Lily James. You've got a driver, his name's Baby, and he relies on listening to kind of music while he drives, as he's got like a little bit of the Archer style ringing in his ear, so he uses music to kind of block that out, and that makes him, he uses that while he's driving. He's a getaway driver, but just everything from that trailer looks awesome. There's just so much energy and excitement happening, and it just looks wickedly funny. I mean, true Edgar Wright, and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are probably hiding in there somewhere, even though they're not in the trailers or anything, but I'm sure they'll pop up somewhere. But Baby Driver, I'm looking forward to so much. Moving on is Despicable Me 3, which releases on June 30. And the main reason I'm really excited for this film is because Trey Parker plays the villain. If you guys have been watching these videos, I tend to sneak South Park references into these videos. So, yeah, I mean, the only reason I have any interest in Despicable Me 3 is because of Trey Parker. I mean, I like the first Despicable Me, and the second one was fine, but the Minions just, I mean, they're great, again, they're great side characters, but they just don't work when you put them as the main characters. There is just not enough to their character to try and have them be the base and focus of their own film. So hopefully Despicable Me 3 is good, but I'm just excited to see Trey Parker in that film. That's all I'm really going there to see it for. Next film that I've got on my list is The House, which is a comedy with Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler, and it's about these parents who lose their college fund for their daughter, and they have to try and earn cash some way so that the daughter can go to school, and they basically decide to set set up an underground casino in the basement of their house. And just, I mean, the trailer looked interesting, looked funny, and I mean, I'm kind of a sucker for Will Ferrell. He's someone I generally tend to enjoy, even though I perfectly understand why, if you're watching this and you dislike Will Ferrell, I totally understand why you dislike Will Ferrell. It's fine. But this just looks, I mean, Amy Poehler's usually great in whatever she's in, so I think, you know, it might be one of the few comedies during the summer season that might really stand out. So hopefully it's something decent and worth watching, so we'll see how that turns out. And then finally, for my list of June films, there's a little limited release horror film I thought I'd try and sneak in, called Wish Upon. Kind of a, little horror thriller. It's kind of like, I don't know, think of like the Simpsons episode where Homer gets like the monkey hand type thing, and you know, he's making all these wishes and just everything goes wrong. It's kind of like that, but with like an old music box. It looks kind of fun, but we'll see. I mean, it's a little limited release horror film from, I mean, the director of the first Annabelle, which, I mean, I'll admit the first Annabelle wasn't a great film, but the trailer looked interesting. I'll check it out when it comes out. We'll see how it goes. It could be interesting, we'll never know. So anyway guys, that's the set of June releases this summer. Stay tuned for the July video. That'll be coming up more or less straight after this is uploaded, so just stick around for that. Again, if you missed the May video, check that one out first. There's a lot coming out this summer holiday, so there's a lot to be excited for. Stay right here for your Monofix, guys.